Hi, everyone. I'm Vincent Joe.
Hi, I'm Kathy Reed.
And I'm Allison Reed.
Hi, I'm Ashley.
Hi, I'm Grace.
We're from the Haydenettes.
I am Mark Henretti.
Ciao a tutti, siamo Rebecca Ghirardi
e Filippo Ambrosini
e vi diamo il benvenuto a
This Week in Skating.
Welcome to This Week in Skating, the weekly podcast bringing you the latest news from the world of figure skating. Here are your hosts, Daphne, Gina, and Matteo.
And we're back. Oh my gosh, the World Championships have ended. I can't believe the season is pretty much over. We've just got Synchro Worlds and we'll be done.
Yeah, and the 2026 World Championships in Prague just wrapped up this week, and to help us recap the event, we are joined by Robert Samuels of the Washington Post. Now, for those of you who don't know Robert or haven't seen his byline, he is a national enterprise reporter for the Washington Post. He's a Pulitzer winner and the co-author of the book His Name is George Floyd, but Robert absolutely loves figure skating and has been an accredited journalist at skating competitions for a number of years. He was with Matteo and I in Milan, and he's in Prague right now, having just covered the World Championships. So we're excited to welcome Robert to This Week in Skating. So welcome, Robert.
Welcome.
Hey guys, how's it going?
It's going great.
And I just have to mention, Matteo was unable to join us for our recording. He is doing a little traveling. He did want to say hi to you, Robert, that he missed you.
I can't believe he did this to me. No, it's fine. I'll get him later.
So before we go into talking all things Worlds, we just have 3 news items we just want to go over quickly. Audrey Shin posted on Instagram, on her Instagram stories, that she and partner Balazs Nagy have ended their partnership. Audrey noted that she was grateful for the experiences she got to share with Balazs and that walking away wasn't an easy decision, but over time she realized how important it is to take care of her mental and emotional well-being, not just her performance. She said she is taking some rest to reset and focus on what's next.
Tetsuya Tsuboi has changed his mind regarding retirement. He will take a year-long break to focus on his studies and then plans to return to competition. I really loved his short program this year. I had such a great time with it. So I'm glad that he's decided to take a little break to decide, or to at least rejuvenate himself and then come back.
Well, Versa, a Disney animated short film written and directed by Melcon Pierce, is now streaming on Disney+. The film has a figure skating connection as Ben Augusto and Catherine Hill blocked the character movements, and Una Brown and Gage Brown performed the skating used in the animation reference. In addition, our very own Jordan Cowan was involved in this project. The story follows a young couple who experience a range of emotions from grief and loss to ultimate love, joy, and acceptance as they embark on an ethereal, cosmic dance of life.
And now we're going to transition to what everyone wants to hear about, which is the 2026 World Figure Skating Championships. As we segue into this, we want to, off the top, send our love and support to Kristen Spowers of Great Britain, as she lost her father while she was competing at the World Championships. Kristen did not qualify for the free skate, and Worlds was her last event as she is retiring due to a spinal injury. So our love and support goes to Kristen and our best wishes in her next steps in her life.
So, Robert, first off, I just want to ask you about Worlds and the audience. It seemed like it was packed, and we are familiar with the last 2 World Championships in Montreal and Boston where there was a packed crowd, but it looked like Prague followed suit and it was packed the whole time.
Yeah, I was really surprised, actually. So the numbers that the ISU gave was 120,000 spectators for the event, which was pretty good. I mean, really, really good. The arena itself, I think, holds about 20,000 people. And even for the pairs short, I mean, it was pretty full. For the men, it was pretty full too, which happened on a Thursday afternoon in Prague. Apparently, people got the time off, which was interesting. And I gotta say, it was the best, most naturally rhythmic audience I had never seen. So for the Czech ice dance team, as they were skating to Malaguena, and also for some of the performances to Carmen, they had syncopated claps, which I had never, like I'm used to audiences kind of like going but they were. I was like, okay, cool. We do two time here, So like, it was that kind of audience.
Yeah. And can I ask you what the mascot was?
Oh God. So I have a fear of mascots.
Oh.
So every time it ran around, I kind of like looked away. But it kind of like maybe it was a hedgehog.
I think it was a hedgehog.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a hedgehog with like colorful spikes. But I briefly saw it and then I turned around because I have a mascot here. This and the Milan mask. Tina and Milo were the scariest of all. Like it triggered me in like just like really bizarre way. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Wow.
It's totally okay. I mean,
it's how my body responded.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that was the mascot.
We all have a fear of something. Like it's just a natural thing. It's part of who we are, and that's totally okay. We don't usually have mascots running around U.S. events, though.
No,
I don't think so.
No,
we didn't have one in Boston Worlds either, did we?
No, I don't think so. I guess, you know what? We're a mascot-free zone when it comes to figure skating in the U.S.
Yeah.
Just for Robert.
If I had to make one impact on the figure skating world, I guess this would be it. Yeah.
I mean, we have them everywhere else, so it's not like, they're baseball, basketball, football. Yeah, it's everywhere else, just not in figure skating.
In D.C., they have like not one, but 5 mascots for the Nationals. They're like big presidential heads.
Oh my gosh. I don't know that I'd want a big presidential head coming after me.
They race during some inning. I've never been to a game because I find them terrifying. But they're
man.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
No, thank you.
Well, we'll move on from the mascots and we'll actually get into the skating here. So, in the pairs event, I'll run down, Robert, here, like, our medalists, and then we'll just open it and we can just chat about what we thought of the performances. So, gold was won by Minerva Fabian Hasse and Nikita Volonin of Germany, the first world title for Germany since Alona Savchenko and Bruno Massot won in 2018. Silver was won by Anastasia Meltakina and Luka Baruvula of Georgia, the first world medal for Georgia. And bronze was won by Canada's Leah Pereira and Trent Michaud. And then Yuna Nakioka and Sumatada Moriguchi of Japan finished in 4th, just outside of that bronze medal position. So, I know for me, the shock and surprise was, of course, Leah Pereira and Trent Michaud of Canada taking the bronze medal. We saw a similar situation happen at the Olympics where they were in a medal position after the short program, and part of me was like, are they going to stay in that position? But they surely did, and got to take home a world medal, their first world medal. So that was the performance of me for the pairs, but I'll just open it up for you there, Robert. What were your thoughts on the pairs?
Well, that was a very nerve-wracking competition in general. But the highlight for me was Nagaoka and Moriguchi. You saw them improving. They've been doing really great shorts. I saw them in the Finlandia Trophy, and at the Olympics, it was so disappointing to see how poorly they had done. And for such a new team to have to come after Miura and Kahara and to carry that legacy for such a nascent country when it comes to pure skating, to go out there and perform well, like I just thought they were pretty magical. I I'm like on the fence about how I feel about Rocket Man becoming a war horse in figure skating. I feel like it might be headed that way. But like right now, it feels so great and fresh. And I really enjoyed it. Also, like for me, um, Hasse and Valadin, they're I really like the sort of traditional Soviet style pairs with the big jumps, and so they're not truly my cup of tea. But I thought their short was so extraordinary. Like, I think like the point of Minerva's toe is so impressive. The tango elements moved really well, and they were really delightful to watch. So it was a pretty good competition. And they just felt terrible for both American couples.
Oh yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Emily Chan and Spencer Howe. It was so hard to watch that, where she fell on both of the throws, and then the death spiral. She lost the edge on that, and got no points for that, and that was so hard to watch them skate that program. Yeah. Knowing that they were the higher team at the Olympics, higher than Ellie Cam and Danny O'Shea, and so it was unfortunate to see them end their season with that. I thought Alicia and Misha came back in the free. They finished sixth, and they were the highest of the U.S. pairs teams. But that was a disappointing short program for them. It was like, part of me was wondering what happened during this time after nationals, knowing that they weren't going to the Olympics. Were they still really training for Worlds? So I was glad they had a better free skate, because I do love that love story free skate that they did this season.
Yeah, it's I spoke with Emily and Spencer and Misha and Elisa both, and I think they said Chan and Hao had maybe like 6 days to get it together, so they had stopped training and restarted when they found out. So because they thought they were done, which I think attributed to some of the problems we saw in the long. But like another thing about the crowd, because you had asked about it earlier, Gina, is that after the death spiral, like there was that moment where she gets up and she looks at Spencer and Spencer looks at her. And sort of like the crowd just kind of like lifted them up in this like really special way. And, you've seen crowds kind of, try to boost the skater before, but there was something really distinct about the way they did that. And it was a little goosebump inducing actually. And they felt it as well. And with Misha and Elisa, they were so disappointed in the short. They had really high hopes, especially after coming off 4 continents. But I think I think it's hard for the figure skating community. I think, we know them as this pair that's been emergent and that's sort of emerging as the best American pair. And I think, when all of the discussions reemerged about citizenship after the national championships, like they were so good at blocking all that stuff out because it was happening in a sort of like limited space. And I think that was really hard to do. And for them, I think there was this sense that maybe if we compete well, if we continue to compete well, someone, a senator, Congress will do something to expedite the citizenship. And I think it's really difficult to go through a season full bore when you feel that kind of pressure, like not just like Olympic pressure, but also like before we can get to the Olympics, we might have to like produce a magic trick so like, someone will bless us with expedited citizenship. And I think, that weighed on them in their training. So we had an interesting conversation about their mindset. And, there might have been an element of they wanted that success so much that it kind of hindered them. I thought the long looked considerably better, but there's this question about jump like side by side jumps for, I mean, so many of the American pairs, and I think that's a lingering question.
Yeah, definitely. I have to mention this in our pairs recap here. Annika Hawk and Robert Kunkel did a headbanger at the end of their free skate. Mark kept saying they had a surprise, and I kind of wondered if that was what it was going to be. Of course, that is an illegal element, but they did not get a deduction. I didn't see a deduction in the protocols, so...
Everything's wild. I think there are a lot of questions about the judging at this World Championships in particular, but I think when Adam Yohimfa forced the backflip issue, I think that sort of raised some ideas for lots of people. They talked about it too. They're like, all right, what can we do? And so now we got headbangers. And this surprised me because I always thought, what could be more dangerous than a headbanger? It's called a headbanger, right? And they insisted that it's no more dangerous than some of the other pair elements, which I don't know, but I was like, really? I think if they can get that one through, I mean, I think that would be a bigger coup than the backflip. Don't you think so?
Yeah. Yeah,
it's so dangerous.
It is so dangerous, and we only ever see it in shows, and I'm like, even at that point, I'm like, sometimes the men are really swinging them, and yeah. So, I don't know. But who knows? I mean, the ISU could make it legal. I don't know. But
they're considering everything else.
I know. But, I mean, I'm glad they went for it. What a way to end the season, regardless if they were going to get a deduction or not. I mean, come on. This has been a long Olympic season. Go out with a bang. Yeah. Thankfully, no injuries. Bang, yeah. And it was a successful headbang. But
yeah.
I feel like they are a team that deserves a bit more love from the judges than what they get. I think they have solid elements, and I've just been waiting for them to get, to put things together and get some attention. And so they kind of took the bull by the horns and got their own attention with that at Worlds. And maybe they will end up adding some sort of headbanger element into pairs now, and they'll be the catalyst behind it. I mean, who knows?
Would that qualify as a choreographic lift, or whatever the new element?
If they want the audience to be more involved or more excited about skating, there are other ways of doing it besides making unilateral changes that aren't necessarily taken into account what the athletes or fans really want. There are a lot of questions that I think are going to come out of this season, especially with the Congress coming, and we're going to start getting information on some of these other changes. But based on what I've heard so far, I'm not sure that it's moving in the right direction yet. I'll wait until they release the suggestions and proposals for the Congress, but I'll reserve that because I'm feeling there needs to be some attention put on the athletes and talking to them and their coaches and what they want to see in the sport, because they're the ones actually doing these things, not officials. So
yeah, I mean, on that note, I'm sure we're going to get to the men, but at the men's press conference, I asked what they thought about some of the ISU changes. And, it was William Allen and Shun Sato and Yuga Kageyama who won the silver. And I was actually fairly surprised at how frank and honest they were in opposition of what not just sort of like the idea of reducing the number of jumps, but the separation between technical and artistry, particularly from Yuma Kageyama, who, I mean, that's a system for which might actually lead to his benefit, medals wise. And he said, no, he thinks that the tension between technical and the artistic is what makes the sport interesting. And he also brought up the concept of, why are we sort of focusing on this issue when the bigger issue is music rights, to which is actually right? Like,
It's true.
right? Music rights, right? Like, because what that can do to like limit sort of like all the strides and sort of like the variety of programs that like we were able to hear. Like, I don't think like it's coincidence that this year, like we saw like a lot more Romeo and Juliet, like a lot more Moulin Rouge. Like I know we hear those all the time, but I think there was a like repetitive nature, like a noticeable repetitive nature that we did not used to see. And so I was surprised at sort of like the vocalness of it, and Ilya Malinin, who like also I find him to be personally very forthright about his own emotions. But, as a competitor, I think it's really hard to sort of say it and sort of like to use his voice and his pulpit to essentially say, like, we are actually the people who are putting butts in the seats and bringing fans to the sport, to which he is right, and that they have no say over it, and that he wishes they would. And, it was a really, really stark that they would, despite whatever risk, to say such things. I will also say on the ISU changes, like I asked a lot of peers about the changes coming to peers. Many of them were excited about it. They felt like, it will give them more time to be creative. And many of the ice dancers were very excited about the return of the compulsory dance. I know you talked about that, Daphne, but like I was, I wasn't sure how that was going to go, and I was thrilled that they were so thrilled about it. So it's interesting that on one hand you had the pairs and the ice dance teams who are kind of like we like where this is headed, and with singles skating it's a completely different story.
Yeah. I'm intrigued on how this is going to play out, especially with this is a Congress year, so we'll find out what happens there. But also, getting the athlete's perspective. Back at Nationals, Ann Calder, my journalist, asked all of the senior ice dancers what they thought or what direction they thought the rhythm dance should go in. And this is before it came out that they were going to Golden Waltz and Westminster Waltz. They were all mostly favorable about moving to compulsories, and a waltz was brought up multiple times. And I think part of it is because a lot of the themes we've been doing lately really do play to the strengths of some of the teams and not to others. Whereas a waltz is going to play, it's going to be a strength for some teams and not for others. But it's in a different direction. I think it might favor some of those teams who may have felt a little abandoned during this themed rhythm dance time.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think it's weird. I got into a bit of a tiff about this with another accredited journalist, but like I have felt fairly strongly as a person who learned about ice dance from watching it and has no experience skating, that when they had incorporated the compulsory dance into the original dance, it was a real net benefit for someone like me because it was, it gave a really strong comparison between one and the other.
Mhm.
Like it had very sort of strict rules. And like if you also watched Dancing with the Stars, it kind of helped you understand Dancing with the Stars because you could like understand a quick step hold from a tango hold, all
Yeah.
that stuff. It's teaching you about life or whatever.
Yeah.
So like, I think that was, really, really important. And, um, to be fair, I think, kind of the floaty style that, was so popularized by Patrice Luzon and Marie-France Dubril when they were skating, and then sort of how their academy has been able to influence the style of ice dance. Um, I think reintroducing this does not necessarily play to the strength of that kind of training. And so for me, if you're training with Barbara Fuser-Poli, who is such a great compulsory dancer, if you're training with Igor Spielbahn, who is such a technician, like it feels like there might be a chance for more teams to get in the game. And I think that's fundamentally good. I think like this season of ice dance has generally been really fascinating. Like, you saw because of what the Finns and the Czechs were doing. And I think this is going to make it more fun.
Yeah, I think it's also going to appeal to ice dance traditionalists who have missed this, because I've seen so many posts on social media about how excited people are about the return of a waltz as the theme, and it opens the door for more classical interpretations, but also more modern interpretations as well. Like we could get something very classical like Strauss, or we could end up with something like someone finding a Lady Gaga song that would fit a waltz. I mean, I'm not saying that there is a Lady Gaga song that fits a waltz. I'm just throwing it out there as an example. We could get lots of different types of programs, and I think that is also what people enjoy.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm very excited to see what's going to happen, how they're going to do it, the incorporation of the elements. I remember when they blended the first two dances, like the compulsory and the original dance. I was like, I'm not sure this makes sense. And then you saw so many like interesting interpretations. I think we saw like a lot of great dances before the compulsory patterns were taken out.
Yeah.
And I don't know, for me, it was a lot more of a struggle to be able to decipher the short dance this year. I mean, with the scoring, I think it was maybe a struggle for some of the athletes too. But like, I think just like it took me a long time to be able to sort of figure out what the judges were truly asking them to do. And I think this will make it clearer.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, I'm really what's going to happen.
Absolutely. Well, I think we can round out the pairs. Gina, was there anything else that you wanted to focus on?
All I was going to say is pair spots for next Worlds. Georgia and Germany have 3 spots, 2 spots for Switzerland, Armenia, China, Canada, US, Japan, and Hungary. So US obviously has lost a spot due to placements there, but that basically rounds up pairs. I was going to say, since we were sort of talking about dance, do we want to just go into dance next?
I think that we can go into dance. Wow, what a competition. I will kick off just a couple of things. So after the rhythm dance, 2.02 points separated the teams in 3rd through 5th, and 1.72 points separated the teams in 6th through 10th, which was very close and a bit wild. Gold went to Laurence Fournier-Baudry, Guillaume Cizeron of France. This was their Worlds debut as a team, but both had competed at Worlds previously. I mean, Guillaume Cizeron is now a 6-time world champion. Piper Gillis and Paul Poirier of Canada took the silver medal. I think this was their 13th trip to the World Championships. It's crazy. They've got 5 world medals and their 3rd straight silver. And then a bit of a surprise, but not really if you looked at what we saw at the Olympics from this team. Emilia Zingis and Vadim Kolesnik of the U.S. This was their world's debut. They won the bronze medal. The first team to medal in their first trip to Worlds since Maya and Alex Shibutani won a bronze back in 2011. Because I'm not really counting this Worlds debut for Laurence and Guillaume because they had been to Worlds before with other partners. It really wasn't a true debut. But in this case, it was for Emilia and Vadim. Lila Fear and Lewis Gibson missed out on the bronze by 0.22. Their stationary lift was deemed an illegal element and they got a 2-point deduction. And also Lewis's twizzles were the downgrade at this event, which it had been Lila's previously. Great Britain has issued a statement on the result in the judging, and they're going to appeal to the ISU. Olivia Smart and Tim Deek of Spain, 2nd in the free dance and 5th overall. I mean, I don't think you can argue with their 2nd place free dance because it was very, very special. They were so excited about the result when they got the scores. The other thing I want to mention is Yulia Turkula and Matthias Versluis unfortunately had to withdraw before the free dance. Yulia had practiced in the morning by herself, and from what it appears is Matthias is still dealing with the injury that kept them out of most of the season. They were able to compete at the Olympics, which was very fortunate for them. But with them not competing in the free dance and Yuka Orihara and Juho Parina not qualifying for the free dance, Finland's going to be down to 1 ice dance spot at their home Olympics in Tampere next year. So, Robert, you were there.
Yeah.
Let us know what you think.
Oh my God. What? I'm still kind of processing everything that happened. For me to start, I just have to say, like, I have been fascinated with the progress of Zingis and Kolesnik from last season to this season. I mean, talk about that, like, just has such tremendous push and energy and youth and vigor. And I think it kind of like naturally stood out because so many of the teams were so seasoned. But in this one, you know, when during the rhythm dance, when Emilia just kind of like popped out to the like New Jack swing with that sort of energy, that's sort of like when I knew the bronze medal was theirs, even though, you know, I know they came fourth in that segment. But like, it kind of reminded me of Madison Hubble at the Olympics when, you know, they were doing the Rhythm Nation and she just kind of like popped out and was like, this one's mine, you know, like, and the fact that like within that short period of time, they were able to find different nuances within the rhythm dance, I thought was really extraordinary. I thought like the 1 foot sequence in the free dance also looked really good. Some of the, like, you know, I have been a big fan of their free dance because I do not like the Prokofiev Romeo and Juliet. I find it a little grating musically, and yet every time I saw it, I found myself on the edge of my seat. I thought it was so tense and so moving. So, you know, there's that to be said. Similarly, Farron Gibson, because of everything I previously said, it makes me a little bit uneasy with Farron Gibson as a person who is a bit of a traditionalist. Um, and to sort of like see that contrast after they had performed, and I thought they performed well, save for the lift. Between this team getting this bronze medal and hearing kind of like the boos of the crowd who couldn't like sort of like ascertain what happened at this point, because I have not great vision, I couldn't see the deduction. And then, you went down to the mix zone and Lila and Lewis aren't coming out. And I talked to one of the officials, and the official said, we don't see them. And Andrew said, what do you mean you don't see them? Where could they be? And she goes, well, they're not coming through the mix zone. And I said, is there another way to escape? And it turned out they were with the technical panel trying to review what happened with what we now know is a straight arm on the stationary left, which is what killed their chances. Now they're saying that it didn't happen and, like the deduction was too strong. It's going to be interesting to see what the panel, the ISU will do. But I think reviewing it, it became clear that the arm was, fairly locked in. And so, there was that. But it was also like watching the Smart and Deke rally or Smart and Deke rally in the free was also super exciting. I've always liked the Dune program. Who doesn't like the Dune program? But I did like every note was hit so well. Like the lifts were extraordinary, but it seemed faster and bigger than what I saw at the Olympics. And you thought like this is really close. They couldn't like actually do this. And like how like how many people were they gonna jump? And that was like really, really thrilling. And you're thinking like, oh my God, what kind of competition are we seeing here? And
I knew that they had put themselves in a really good position in the rhythm dance. I felt like the score was solid and higher, and that it was within reach for them.
Yeah. I thought in my mind, I had sort of said, just given the trajectory, I think Zingis and Kolesnik are going to win this bronze medal because of, not only their progress, but the direction in which the sport seems to be heading. And then when they came out, I said to myself, well, wait a second. And like they could sneak onto the bronze. And for a good point, I thought they were going to do it. They looked really great, and they had the audience in the palm of their hands. Like it was funny. I was speaking with an official before the free dance, and the question, they're like, why are they putting ice dance last? Let me tell you, this Czech audience loved ice dance, not an empty seat in the house. And so I thought they were really wonderful. And Funir Boudry and Cicerone is, I thought, simply mesmerizing. I thought it was by far superior performance than we saw in Milan. I thought it was fluid. I thought, I just love the quiet power that they have, just sort of like the length of their glide, the subtleness, the strength of it. And, I know I understand the controversies about the team, and I don't want to dismiss that because it's serious. And then, you sort of like look at the absolute value of their skating performance. And I feel like it's incomparable. And I don't mean that in sort of, I mean that in the most literal way. I I can't think of them in relationship to another team currently competing or a team that competed previously. I think they have so generated their own feeling, their own move. I think it's distinct from Cicerone and Papadakis. I think like what they're doing is a little bit stronger. It's way longer. Um, I'm not sure if it's better or worse. Some days I think it's better, some days I think it's worse. But I think it's really singular. And just that how many teams in it? It was like sort of like those 5 or 6 performances were great. It was it was one of the best danced ice dances I've ever seen. That lift was unfortunate. And so, like, the rules will say one thing, right? But, like, as an experience watching ice dance, I just thought it was like, it was so thrilling. And it was so sad it had to end in controversy. It kind of tainted so much of it.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, Robert, did you guys in real time know that there was something? Because, like, watching it back here, Mark kept telling us, he kept going, there's going to be a deduction. And he was trying to figure it out by looking at the protocols. And then you had on the screen Lila and Lewis in the kiss and cry, and they're excited. They had a really good skate. The crowd really loved it. And then they see the score come up, and it so reminded me of Four Continents in Anaheim was Madison Hubble and Zachary Donahue when their faces looked at that score and were like, what happened? Where did that deduction come?
Yeah, this isn't the first time that something like this has happened. There have been instances even throughout the season where teams have been dinged on things that they had been doing the whole season. Zingas and Kolesnik were dinged at NHK Trophy for something they had been doing. It's unfortunate when it happens at a high-level event like this when medals are on the line and points. Like, there's so much that goes into this because those ISU points determine things for next season. It also affects, like, Grand Prix assignments. If you're in the top 3 or if you're 3rd versus 4th, it all, the way it works is very, very intricate.
Yeah. And, so I thought, so the short answer to your question, Gina, is no. So one of my frustrations, I think my biggest frustration is that, like, we don't get the live protocols, and I would love them. I find it to be really, really frustrating that, like, if you're a spectator at home, or if you're reporting from your house, you see so many more things in real time than you do if you're there. Like, the Olympics are an exception, but few people get to see the calls as they're happening. So again, we're pretty high up there. So I honestly did not note the lift. I noted in my head that seemed like an unusually strong lift for them. But in my mind, I was just sort of like remarking on the strength of the hold, not the lock of the elbows. Now, when I think about it now, I'm like, that's why it looked so strong. He was, he had military pressed his partner. But the thing that I had noted was the twizzle, which seemed off. And so, like, when I actually thought this is a little generous, but given the way they performed that free skate at the Olympics, where the twizzles were off, and then it just looked like Lila couldn't place her free leg anymore, and it just looked like it really disintegrated. That did not happen, and so in terms of what I saw out there, I saw the best I'd ever seen them look, save the twizzle. And when it was taking a long time, that's when sort of like a buzz started within the crowd for people who are listening to broadcasts, to say that there was something wrong with the lift. But no, it was very unusual. And I actually think this crowd seemed fairly knowledgeable about ice dance. And, you couldn't help um, but feel disappointed. I think, like, they really pushed behind Farron Gibson. The crowd really pushed behind Farron Gibson. And, they're angry for them. And at the same time, there's this team that's in first place in their first world championship. And they're about to find out that they won a medal. And I thought, like, it was deserved and they had done really well. And to sort of like have that contrast of, like, both simultaneous joy and disappointment was really, really hard. But yeah, no, I could not see it. But again, it felt like a really strong lift, but too strong.
Now, what did you think of Piper and Paul bringing back Wuthering Heights for this free dance?
Oh, yeah. So this one's tough for me, because I'm a huge Gilles and Poirier fan. I think they've done a world of good in ice dance. I find their steps to the transition so intricate. I find their programs to be incredibly thoughtful. And so, this particular program for me had always been one that I had personally struggled with. Like, I know lots of people love it. But I think a part of it is because I never read Wuthering Heights, so I wasn't really sure what it was about. Now, with the knowledge, I get it a little bit more. Um, I did not think that was like their strongest performance from the top. Like, to me, the 1 foot sequence seemed a little jerky, feel like a little scratchy. And that's when I got a little nervous. But then they sort of got it together as, experienced, excellent skaters do. And I thought it ended fairly strongly. But as for the dance, I did not find it to be as, wonderful as what we've seen from them before. And I think, that said, right, then you kind of like consider the situation. Like, Vincent is a masterpiece. I thought the old version was a masterpiece. It's probably one of my favorite free dances of all time. Literally, the 2000 was 2016. Not 2016. I can't remember the first time they did it, but and I thought the revised version built to that level. Like, it was so moving in Milan. Like, I cried.
I did too.
I'm sure you cried. I cried. You cried. We all cried. And so like, I get why it was hard to recreate that. And I think, like, because you have that in your head, when you saw like the lack of finish in this particular program, it was sort of like naturally disappointing. Like, I'm sure, like, when you look at it in a year, it would, like, the contrast wouldn't be as strong. But I thought it was a good dance. I did not think it was a great dance. And I was not surprised when out to them in the free dance, which I mean, what? Like, I'm saying it, and I'm like, what am I saying? But like, but I was not. It did not seem to have the finish, not being in Finland, but the completion, the polish. Nor did it have the sense of attack as the Spanish dance. That was my interpretation of it.
Now, one thing I noticed before we move on to anything to the other two disciplines is that, especially with dance, I noticed teams taking a long time to exit the ice. Like, some teams, it was like their farewell. I think I saw it with Piper and Paul, Allison and Saul. It was like this, like, we don't know what is happening with some of these teams, but there was just like the way teams and skaters were exiting the ice, there was just this long like exit that makes me think we might have saw the end for some teams and skaters who have yet to announce what their future plans are.
Yeah. We're almost entering that period of time. I feel like probably even next week we may start to get the posts from skaters who are stepping away. Not like with Kiori, which we knew this was her last season. And I honestly appreciate that. Because I felt like we got this whole season to like soak in all of her performances and celebrate her. And that meant a lot to me to be able to see that and know that, okay, this is her last competitive performance or this was her last Olympic performance. Like to be on that journey with her. And I felt that was really inclusive. And in some cases, I know there were teams and skaters who said this is it, but then like Tatsuya Saboi is saying, no, I think I'll take a season off and then come back. And then others that have been in the sport for such a long time, it's just, okay, are you going to? And I think the general migration out of the sport is harder because there aren't as many professional opportunities for skaters. But I also think that in some ways it's time so that the athletes who are coming behind them don't have to wait until they're 30 to go to the Olympics or mid-20s to have opportunities. Like it's time now. The average retirement age in ice dance has gone up quite a bit over the last quad, maybe 2 quads. And so I'm wondering if we're going to continue to see that or if we're going to go back to something a little more what used to be the norm, which was 28 to 32 was like the max age for dance teams. I guess we'll find out in the coming months.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I tried to ask different teams this question in a few different ways. And I think doing the golden waltz might keep some in for a little bit longer.
I love these teams. Like I've watched so many of them grow up in this sport. Yeah. So I'm kind of like, do you want to continue to put your body through this every year? I think some of it, honestly, Robert, I think some of it also is going to depend on if teams stay in. Because there have been situations where teams have come back to competition after a break or have situations like that have caused like a mass exodus of the middle teams, like the teams that are in the middle age range to say, you know what, why are we continuing to do this when our opportunity is never going to come? And that happened when Tessa and Scott decided to come back. Like a bunch of the Canadian teams split, retired, moved on. So I think what this next quad looks like, I'm not really sure yet.
Yeah. I think it's going to be interesting. I don't know why I presume Smart and Deke were done. But, they're not done. And they're very insistent on that. I don't know, Daphne. I think there's something nice about someone trying to like fulfill some sort of like personal destiny. I enjoy that, and I do think like different teams peak at different times. But for Marilyn, Charlie, and Gabby and Guillaume, what kind of conversation would we be having about chalk and baits? And you can look at it and sort of say from one end and say, well, They only began to flourish when those teams weren't there. And you can also look at it from another way. It's that it's like they began to flourish when those teams weren't there. Like look at just like how much more experimental they became. And, just by the end of it, they were their own distinct thing. They weren't placeholders. So, I don't know how I feel about it. And at the same time, some of these teams are like really exciting, and their moment should be there. I thought that way, especially this weekend about I know the French team, Love of Brava and Brassard.
Yeah.
I thought they looked so fluid, and their free dance, like to me, like over the course of they smoothed out the edges of it in this like really nice way. They're maturing so fast, right? And you'd want to see the placements reflect that maturation. So yeah, I mean, this is a really complicated thing.
It
right?
is. Because ice dance too has been political, even though there are naysayers about that. I mean, general fans can see it, so it's not like it's a hidden thing. It's very interesting, though, how that plays into it. Sometimes I joke that I need to have like an Excel spreadsheet so that I can make all these different algorithms for what could and would happen if this happens and mistakes are made, but no mistakes, and who's on, what the panel looks like. There's just so much that goes into it, and sometimes I wish it could be simpler. And there have been great strides made, but there also is still a lot of work to do, I think.
Yeah. And, I feel like this is going to sound really trite, but forgive me. Like, I feel like we are about to enter into like a new golden age of ice dance.
I think it could be. I think you could be right.
And like the reason why is because I feel like the styles are becoming more diverse. Like the Czech Federation's going to have a hard time next year, but I think like Tashler and Tashlerova and sort of like they're sort of like powerful styles distinct. I think Zarek and Zarakova. I'm a sucker for flamenco anyway, but like I thought like they were improving like super fast. And to have them, Lejoy and Laga, like I don't think they've peaked yet. You have the French, and like you have these teams that I feel are like reshaping the contours of what a program should look like. And sort of like, I think the sort of like resuscitation of the power and coverage game that Igor Spielban, like first brought to Merle and Charlie, and now we see Latzingas and Kolesnik. I just think like the contrast, like we are going to have so many debates. And I
think that's great. I think it brings some interest to the sport. Because I've always felt like ice dance should be inclusive of all different styles. And it's very hard, and I get this, from a judging perspective to have to compare all of these styles. But I think it's what makes ice dance special is having teams that are not all cookie cutter, but are all distinct with programs that match who they are.
Yeah. I think it's gonna be fascinating to watch. And like of course there'll be questions about the judging. It's figure skating, but like I think there are like good debates and there are bad debates, right?
Yeah.
Like a bad debate is like, is the straight arm straight in the left? Like a debate over like whether like the avant-garde is like more interesting and more compelling than like a strict tango. I feel like, like those are the things that, if facilitated well, could like forge such community. Those are the things that like you can have arguments about over the dinner table and not be like, I don't want to watch this anymore.
Mhm.
But like say like, oh yeah, like we're into it because we're gonna see what happens the next time. And I feel like we're kind of moving into that. I feel like that's kind of cool.
Yeah, it makes it fun. Also, when it's close and there's movement, people get more invested in how it's going to end versus, oh, this is predictable. Like, this is what it's going to be. These are the results. These are going to be the top three. It's not, it's too static. It's too, here we are. And I think we've seen some shifting. I think 4 or 5 of the last bronze medalists at Worlds have all been different teams, which is interesting. But you know what? We'll see. And as we segue out of ice dance, which everyone knows I could talk about for hours and hours, looking at the ice dance spots for next year's Worlds. 3 spots, US, Canada, and France. And 2 spots, Lithuania, Spain, Georgia, Great Britain, and Czech Republic.
Well, we will move on to the women, because that was the second event to conclude, and we jumped orders here, but gold went to Kaori Sakamoto. She won her 4th world title in her last competition of her competitive career. This is the most world titles for a female skater since Michelle Kwan won 5 in the late 90s, early 2000s. Such a beautiful skate. She was crying. I'm sure everybody else in that arena was crying. I know I was crying. We'll talk more about it in a second for sure. She is still planning to skate in shows, so she's not going away, just not going to be on competitive ice, sadly. Silver went to Monet Chiba, who was in second after the short program, less than a point behind Kaori. This is her 2nd consecutive world medal. She won bronze last year. It was nice to see her get a medal, given she was disappointed at finishing 4th at the Olympics and not medaling. So it was nice to see her have that redemption of a weekend at Worlds. Bronze went to Nina Pinzaroni, who moved up from 5th after the short program to claim the bronze. This is her 1st world medal. 4th trip to the World Championships. She was 13th at the Olympics, so a bit of a surprise to see her medal. Mark even commented that she said to media, and maybe you heard this, Robert, that she was surprised to see herself in 5th and that she'd probably fall in the standings after the free skate, but that was not what happened. She, took the bronze, so happy for her. Isabel Levito, the 2nd straight year she misses the podium. She finished 4th. She, of course, was looking for her 2nd world medal, and so she was very close there. She was the top American. We got to see the final Shark Naki program with Lara Naki-Gutman. It was a stellar finale to that program that so much of us enjoy. She finished 5th, her best result at a World Championships. And then, unfortunately, Amber Glenn, who was in medal position after the short program, dropped to 6th overall. She nailed that triple axel. It was the triple loop that got her, and then the program sort of just kind of fell apart from there. Have to mention Jia Shin had the 4th best free skate in her World's debut, and she finished 8th overall. And then Ami Naki of Japan, who was the Olympic bronze medalist, she was 9th. She had some issues with her triple axel, definitely, this past week, and it just was not her best skates. But I'll open the floor, Robert. I mean, I know Kaori is the... What can you say about Kaori?
Like, I'm not trying to make it seem like this is a, melodramatic, emotional world, but this was a melodramatic, emotional World Championships. Kaori Sakamoto, what magic on ice, right? And I think the first thing that remains so special about her is that she's always been such a distinct skater, like more like just in those jumps, more distance than height. And to see her own competitive valediction was truly moving. And I think like the question that you'd walk out of this championships with would be like, did you cry more at the short or did you cry more at the long? Right? Like, um, for me, I cried more at the long. And the reason is, you know, I'm thrilled for Alyssa Liu. She deservedly won that gold medal. And I think I also had a strong sense about empathy for the Japanese, right? To um have this champion to not have it happen in that sort of way, like it gave me strong Michelle Kwan feelings. And to, sort of like see her crumble to, your point, Daphne. We didn't know what was going to happen with Michelle, but we knew what was going to happen with Kaori. And, in practices in Milan, she looked tremendous. It looked like she wasn't going to miss. And then she missed. And here, you knew from that double axel that like you were about to see something special, right? And like the double axel is always great, but like at the Olympics, it was kind of the tell that she was nervous because like if you watch it, like, the run out that she has and when she moves into the edge work, it's wasn't as long and not as strong. Here, long, strong, controlled. And that jubilation and emotion, like I was tearing up. There are others who are just bawling, rightfully so. And, to have that final pose triumphantly, and there are stars from the headlights like blasting on the ground. It was such a magical thing to see. Like it was like I joked, I was like, this is probably the most moving thing I've seen in my life. And I saw the original cast of Hamilton. It was just like, what are you just melting? Puddles, right? And like, I think it also kind of reset the frame, not of the championship and of the event. Um, One, because of what happened to Amber Glenn, who's the other person I think people really wanted it for. And when she went into that triple axel and she launched it and it looked so good, it was such a seduction. We were enthralled in that world. And, to have that triple loop again be the beginning of her unraveling was really hard. And because, she has given um, people who watch the sport the privilege of her vulnerability, we know how much it meant to her. Because we knew how much it meant to her, I think it meant a lot more to other people. And that was just terrible. Like it was just a terrible feeling to have. And I thought to myself, is Prague cursed? Um, because I remember when it happened to Nancy in Prague. Like I remember it so strongly, and it just felt really really sad. And so like I'm glad the audience um was there to be with her to like just kind of hold her a bit. And like, the free dance I don't feel is very clappable, like, but even like the Czechs found a way to do it. And I was like, this is like, how much do they love Amber Glenn? They found the beat in sort of this like really subtle program. And I think like it was, like it was good to like know the crowd was with her. And like I think also, the talk is rightfully about like Isabella Vito. Like I know she was sort of disappointed with her marks. Um, but I thought that was actually a good step for Isabeau. I thought um, just attempting the triple loop, getting it so close was a real mark of strength and push and improvement. She had told me earlier that, she really I had asked about the jumping and sort of increasing the technical content. And she said that, she really wanted to start doing that next year. And after coming from the Olympics, she got a little bored with her programs and she wanted to start trying out different combinations. And like to go from like flip toe to let's loop, that's not a small change. And so like the fact that she almost did it sort of like really reaffirmed the idea that there's more in the tank for Isabel Levito. And also, call me a conspiracy theorist, but like, did you see something different with like the height of the double axel? Like, I actually think it is in her to land a triple axel. I might be crazy, but I don't think I'm crazy. I think that double axel was looking higher. She also has a really nice running outside edge of it. I think she can do it. And I don't think she's telling us, but I think she can do it. And also, Mona Chiba, I feel, is always like the underrated story because, like, it's Kaori's goodbye. But, like, I thought how she's been able to get herself, like, there are some under rotations and cues in the long in the Olympics. I thought, like, what she did was great. The Lutz edge seems to be good, like, close to being fully healed. And I thought that was really exciting for her. It's it's sad that she got lost in it, but I think the reason, again, not just Kaori, but Nina Pinzerone, I too was under the impression, oh, she's just gonna fall in the free like she usually does. I don't really need to pay that much attention. And then I saw her land and I thought to myself, why haven't I been paying more attention? Like, just the quality of line in her landing positions, like really strong, really like balletic phrasing. And, it's one of those programs that, I mean, personally, when it's a little off, it feels like a little droll. But when it's on, I think it's really fascinating because you can sort of like see the she kind of has like a 90s style patience in some of her moves. And like sort of like she rightfully deserved that bronze medal. And I was glad she got her flowers because I thought she was really extraordinary.
Yeah. Yeah. With her, I enjoyed her skating when she did really well there 2 seasons ago that she made the final. Yeah. And then within like last season and even this season, she's kind of fallen off my radar a little bit because she hasn't had those outstanding skates. So I was completely surprised. And then when, even Mark was saying she was even going to say that she was going to drop in the standings at, during the free, and she didn't. But yeah, I do. Her lines, she has a really good quality to her skating that I enjoy, and she kind of has been off my radar a little bit just because she hasn't had those results as of late. But, it was nice to see her, take a bronze, and now Belgium has the 2 spots next year for Worlds. We don't know what Luna Hendricks is going to do.
Yeah.
Well, remember, Nina did this last year. She went to Worlds and got 2 spots for Belgium at the Olympics, and then Luna came in and solidified that second spot.
That's right. Yeah.
Nina, when it counts, she is capable of stepping up in those moments like this that really matter, especially when it's a country moment, like trying to get spots for Belgium. She has stepped up and has done it. Like, she's able to do that.
Yeah. And she was 4th at Europeans this season. I'm just looking at this now, and I'm like, well, why didn't I have her more on my radar that she could have possibly medaled at Worlds? Maybe it was the fact that she wasn't, she finished 13th at the Olympics. But, yeah.
But I also feel that, like, and I feel also about, Petrokina as well. It's weird that the European women in particular, they sort of feel like kind of, I I don't want to say it's sort of mean-spirited way, but they do feel tangential to the kind of like the larger narratives about, like the sport. It's been so much attention on the Japanese and the Americans because if they skate well, they're really hard to beat. But like when we think about it, like to your point, Daphne, Nina, tremendous quality. Uh Lauren Lochte Gutman, I felt had two of the strongest vehicles of the season. Sharknado, like I didn't like Laurie Nickel has so much genius. She's just continually producing bangers over the past 13 years, 30 years. I think it's great. And I thought she performed well. It's like pretty exciting, but they do seem to be a little bit ancillary to the conversation.
Well, I mean, I really loved Sharknaki, as I always called it, this season, and for her to finish 5th, she now has got 2 spots for Italy, and because for Lara, it hasn't been an automatic world spot. I mean, she missed Worlds a couple seasons ago and didn't get to go. So I'm glad there's now that 2nd spot because there are some Italian women coming up that, have challenged Lara. So I'm glad that there is that 2nd spot. And I'm hoping she's going to bring something creative next season that, reminds me of Sharknaki, because I liked it. It was one of my favorite programs all season. So
it's so good.
I loved it because I love Jaws, and we had Lara on the podcast, and it was right after I had gone. They re-released Jaws on the 50th anniversary, and so I went and saw it in IMAX. First time I had seen it in a theater. I'd only ever seen it on like DVD. And I talked about that with her, and the music that she picked, I almost could tell exactly what's happening in the movie at that time. It was really special to see her bring that to life. And I'm excited to see what she brings next season. And while we have lost Kaori, we're getting the Dynamo Queen of Junior Mao Shimada coming up for senior finally, and who knows what that impact is going to be. Like, I feel like Gia has had not a rocky ascension into senior this year, and she's one that she and Mao Shimada battled on the junior circuit. I'm interested to see how Mao Shimada acclimates next season. I think it could be really exciting to see her up against some of these skaters that we are, already so invested in. Yeah, and how she's gonna go with the 2 Japanese, like Monet, Chiba, and Ami Nakai. I mean, like, how is she gonna? How is that little battle, amongst them?
And let's not forget, Rinka's still in it too. So
yeah.
There's so many. Japan is really stacked. And I mean, it's feasible that a skater could get left off the team, even though they're fantastic and a world medalist, maybe. I mean, we're going to have to see. It's a little crazy. Going into a new quad is always... It's exciting because it's full of possibilities, but it's also full of heartbreaking moments, too. So I guess we're just going to have to wait and see when things start later in the summer.
Yeah. Abject terror. I'm just thinking, what if for Lara, we're just going to get like disaster monster movies, like Men in Black next year, Twist.
Already told her if she needed to go down that road to please let me know. I know about most of those movies and could tell her what what soundtrack would be good, because I cover them on my movie podcast.
Was there a soundtrack Twister? Because I feel like thematically that would work well on ice. I don't know. I'm just throwing some stuff out there.
I'm not 100% sure, but I can look into that.
But what did that?
Maybe the
Twister
new
theme
one
needs to happen. I feel like.
Yeah. Can you imagine the scratch spin to that?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, come on, it does make sense.
Yeah, Lori Nickel, if you're listening, call me.
I don't know about the original movie, but I'm quite sure there is one for the new one that came out a couple of years ago, Twisters, which was a good movie. It was a good movie.
It deserved a better name.
Well, it was great. It was really good. We covered it on my podcast. I've actually sent out to a few people some ideas that I had based on some movies that I saw this year. Soundtracks that I thought would be great translated to the ice. So I've sent those out to a few people. I had specific teams in mind, when I watched it, or skaters in mind when I was watching it. So okay, they did really well with this year, so this theme is similar but not the same and could really be a great story told on the ice. So, we'll see.
Okay, well, before we go into the men, the women, 3 spots, Japan and the US, 2 spots, Belgium, Estonia, Georgia, Italy, and Korea. So now we'll move on to the men. And, well, gold was won by Ilya Malinin, a redemption skate from the Olympics. He won his 3rd consecutive world title. So happy that he was able to take that heartbreak in Milan and come out and close out the season with winning his 3rd world title. I've had people already come up and say something to me. Oh, did you see Ilya in Milan? And I was like, yeah, but I've told them now, hey, he just won his 3rd world title. I mean, he was able to take that disappointment and turn things around. So, silver, the program for me of the men's event, Yuma Kageyama.
Oh, yeah.
We'll get to that. He was 6th after the short program because of that Waxel. That was so fluke. I mean, so...
That's not something we may ever see from him ever again.
No, definitely not. And just, I watched the, video of it, in real time, and then seeing, it, people posting it on social media, I couldn't keep watching it. I'm like, no, he's not supposed to fall like that. No, yeah. So, bronze went to Shun Sato. This is his 1st world medal. 4th, Steven Gogolev. In his 1st Worlds, this season has been quite the season for Steven and is definitely someone we need to keep watching for as we go into this next quad. I'm so impressed with what he has been able to do this season. And Adam Sihohim Fa finished 5th. He was in 2nd after the short. And it just like the Olympics, couldn't maintain it in the free to take home a medal. So it was very disappointing. Alexander Selefko, who was in 3rd after the short program, dropped to 6th overall. But more importantly, he secured a 2nd spot for Estonia. So now he and his brother won't have to compete against each other for that 1 spot. That is if they both continue to keep skating. Kevin Amos was 7th. Beautiful free skate for him. Reaction in the kiss and cry, of course, was a typical Kevin Amos reaction. Daniel Grossel was 8th, and I have to mention in this that Daniel is going to get to meet the Pope, which I have to just say a little something, Robert. I don't know if you know this. I interviewed Daniel at the Olympics for the U.S. Catholic Newswire service.
I didn't know this.
Because that's my job. I work for a Catholic newspaper, and they were interested in his conclave program. And Daniel said he was hoping the Pope was going to see him skate, and he was even wanting the Pope to be in Milan because he said, like, hey, there's still seats available. Well, that story did get picked up by a lot of Catholic newspapers in the U.S., so I'm not sure if I had anything to do with this Pope meeting that's going to happen, but I don't know. I just want to throw that out there, but yeah, that's really cool that he's going to meet the Pope, and I'm sure I will be seeing photos of that, so I will definitely make sure the skating world gets to see those photos when he gets to meet the Pope. But yeah, so I'll open it up. What were your thoughts on this men's event? I know we're going to talk about Yuma.
You know what? Before you even start, I'm going to say a couple of things about the men's event.
Oh, okay, Daphne.
We've talked a little bit here about how Worlds in an Olympic year is really hard, but how it's still important because it sets everything up for next year and the next quad, and it's super important. But I did notice some differences in not just Kevin, but some of the other skaters. Like, you could tell a little, like, fatigue was a thing, I think. I think this is one extra competition, or the Olympics is one extra competition. But if you think about it, how many other competitions did they also do in preparation for the Olympics? Like, it's really a big, long thing. And so, honestly, when I was watching the event this week, knowing that spots were a primary objective as far as it's not just the medalists, it's how many spots can you get for your country, especially ones where you know the fields are deep and you need to have the 3 spots. I watched it with this different lens of, wow, I'm really proud. I'm really excited that these skaters were able to get through this final competition knowing that this has been a grind. It's been a grind for journalists. So with the skaters, that's magnified by 100. So I was really proud. And so I watched it with just feeling like appreciative of everything that we got to see.
I agree. I thought we got a feast. This World Championship in general. And to your point, I think, I find that Andrew Turgeshev is one of those folks where, he skated a good short. I said to him, man, you seem so relaxed out there. And he told me how he had been dreading this because he had been so tired. Like, a lot of the skaters got sick after the Olympics. Daniel Grossel, too, is not the finest person in the long program. But, that wasn't a particularly strong competition for him in either phase. And I was like downstairs when he casually mentioned this thing about the Pope. I was going back upstairs and he literally stopped me in my tracks. I said, oh, what did you just say? Like, the Pope loved the program and now Team Italy gets to go. Like it's insane. It's only at the Olympics. And, at the same time, I thought, wow, Yuma Kageyama just performed something that we had so longed to see. And I mean, what a gift. Like, what a gift that was given to him by people who so wanted his success. Even though they had known that he was likely not going to be the gold medalist in any major competition because of, I'll talk about next. But to have a program sort of that magnitude choreographed for you. And I always liked this sort of contrast between Kageyama and Malanin at the beginning of the program, with Malanin, it starts so internal, eyes closed, trying to figure it out. And Kageyama starts from across the board and runs to the judges and sort of like, listen, acknowledge me, and to sort of see that, I watched it at Finlandia. I was in tears. Matteo was in tears. I watched it in practice where he didn't even do the full program. And it was still so moving when sort of like the riff from Nessun begins to soar. And to have it come together like this, it was sadness, I would think, for all of those who have loved the program, not to see it performed cleanly at the Olympics and not with sort of like the spirit, because what an Olympic moment that would have been. But this, was a tremendous moment on its own, particularly like after the Waxel, which was weird. And then to come out and to do it with that. And this time, the time it was perfect, I wasn't as moved emotionally as I had been in the past. And that's not a bad thing, right? Like for me, it was, oh my gosh, is he going to do this? Are we going to get to see it? And sort of like that emotional feeling that you get when the music begins to soar to its full crescendo was kind of replaced by just the enthusiasm of watching this program come to its fullest fruition that we had seen, right? And that was so exciting. It was such a treat. Like they gave us the gift of the choreography, and then they gave us the prize, the treat at the end of the season. I thought it was really extraordinary. And to think about it, like he was 6 points behind Malanen in the free, right? And Ilya, I believe, jumped 5 quads in the free to Kageyama's 3. And I have seen some concerns about the scoring, but I think it's like really kind of important to note that Kageyama jumped Salchow and toe loop and was within a hair, like within a men's hair, of beating a program that had 2 quad lutzes, flips and flips Salchow and toe loop. So I think that sort of speaks to the power of what we had seen. On Ilya Malinin, I think are seeing in real time the maturation of not just the skater, but a person, right? And I think that in itself is also really kind of thrilling to see, to witness this journey as a person who comes into the Olympics feeling and wanting to carry the weight of the entire sport on his shoulders, like if not for the globe, then for the United States, certainly. And leaving this season, learning the lesson that, there might be some power in restraint. Like, he didn't talk to any media before the World Championships. How strict was he about not talking to the media? I will tell you, I went down to Charlottesville, a 2.5 hours drive away from my home in Washington, D.C., to see him sign photographs at a Dick's Sporting Goods. And I thought, surely this might be a good time to talk with the quad god. But no, the quad god knew the sort of questions I would be asking and declined. And, to me, that sort of like showed the seriousness of the task. No reporter likes being denied, but I got where it was going. I thought the short program looked great. I thought it was like exciting. I thought it found an edge. I thought the long program looked less great by Malinin standards, but pretty great by skating standards, right? And I feel like we need to acknowledge that, like to say, oh man, I'm so like something's off because he didn't land a quad axle. Like sentence. Like that's just crazy to say, like seeing what he did. Like the Grand Prix final, I think was the highlight. It was the peak of that program where I felt you saw like with the speed and the attention to edge quality, in addition to the 7 quadruple jumps, you saw it at its best. But like in this, you saw someone who said, what do I need to do to win this championship? And that's what he did. And I think there's something admirable and right about the nature of maturing as a competitor and as a person and sort of saying, okay, I'm releasing that. Like my favorite conversation I had was with Dick Budden, where he told me he never landed a quadruple jump because his hips were too wide. And I said to myself, but you were skating in 1950. I was like, what do you mean? How do you know you couldn't land a quadruple jump before because your hips were too wide? And he went, you don't think I tried? Like, you don't think I thought I was capable of doing a quadruple? Dick Budden in 1950. So like, to like consider that and sort of like the maturation of an athlete being like, okay, like, like there's practice and there's competition. There's things I do for practice, things I do for competition. They're totally different things. And I think that like kind of like showed a good thing. So like, I don't know, like I got a lot of angry messages about Ilya being overscored and the jumps not looking particularly clean and all of that. And I hear some of it. I don't agree with all of it. But like, I also think, God, like 7 quads is really hard. Like really, really, really hard.
Yeah.
And like the other guy jumped 3. So, and the last thing I'll say, and then I'll shut up. I'm so happy for Shun Sato. I love the skater he's becoming. And a part of me is disappointed because I know that like the consistent competitiveness might dampen the responses of Tadao Kasuga, his coach. And I have felt that those reactions have been some of the glories of the season. And like, I'm kind of sad that this is becoming like a normal thing. I was like, oh, well, like the coach is going to be like, oh, you got a bronze medal now. Big whoop. And so like, I'm sad that we're now entering that era.
I hope that's not going to happen. I want him just continue to be excited.
Find joy. We love it. Yeah.
I'm wondering if Ilya took lessons. He probably took lessons from what happened at the Olympics. And often in life, it's the things that don't go your way or the things that are disappointing that often will frame who you are. Like those are the things that teach you the most because you're more vulnerable and you have to be more introspective and kind of analyze what happens or what happened and get past it and move forward. And I read a lot of headlines that were just redemption, redemption, redemption. And I think Ilya, he raised the bar for himself, not just the other competitors. And because everyone was so used to seeing him be on, when he didn't or perform as expected, it became disappointing not only for him, but for everyone who had watched him. We were disappointed for him to have those performances. He's not the first skater to have performances like that. It was disappointing for him, for sure. But I didn't necessarily think that he needed to have Worlds be a redemption, because I just feel like he did the best he could at the Olympics at that time. And so as far as redemption, I don't know that anyone really needed redemption at Worlds.
I think that's a good way of thinking about it. And, like, it's weird because, they sort of said, like, the redemption, I mean, his language was, I want to redemption skate. And, like, at the end of it, like, I don't feel he was redeemed. Like I don't like that wasn't the feeling. Like, I saw a person win a world championship by playing it smartly. And I think he had said in an article that I'd read that I wasn't there when he said it. But like, like the true redemption might be in 2034. But I think at that point, right? I don't know if I don't even know if 2034 is like the redemption, because I also don't think he came into the Milan Olympics as being fully formed. And I've been trying to sort of figure out he's 21, and that's not young, but Ilya Malinin wasn't sort of, I don't see him as kind of like a prodigy in the same way Nathan Chen was, where he just kind of, or Jin Boyang, who just kind of jumped out of the cannon, did things that seemed out of the realm of the possibility when they're 15 or 16, right? And Nathan Chen, I think, was 22 when he won his Olympic championship. Malin was 21, right? But he's so much of a younger 21 than Nathan Chen was 22. And I'm not sure why that is. I'm sure if, we sat down and thought about it.
It's two different, I think, maturity and personality levels.
Yeah.
They're just so different in the way that they approach things. That's something that we've talked about before. Ilya in a press conference is very different than Nathan Chen was in a press conference.
Yeah.
And I think that's fine. I believe that the sport should be made up of all different types of people with different personalities and bring to the table what is their strength. I mean, Nathan, when he went to his first Olympics, he wasn't perfect.
Yeah, yeah. And so Kurt Browning couldn't do it, and look, lots of them have issues.
It's a lot of expectation. Fans get behind someone, and there was a lot of press going into this Olympics because he was predicted to win the competition. And when it didn't go the way that everyone expected, let's remember the ice is slippery, and so things don't always go as expected. You have to give grace with that. You have to say, you know what, it's okay. Maybe we need to be more realistic with our expectations. But Ilya did build his whole trajectory from his nationals in 2022 when he wasn't selected for the team and he was second there, and going all the way to where we are now, where he was the leader going in and expected to be the Olympic champion, and that this was going to be the first of several Olympic championships for him that didn't go according to plan. You have to learn to live with that disappointment, and it can either fuel you and make you stronger, or it can make you feel defeated. And for me, I felt this Worlds was Ilya getting back to business as usual. I felt like it was Ilya doing what he needed to do. He did his job. He won a world title. And to me, it looked like he's processing through the disappointments of the Olympics. And now we'll be back on track for next season.
And I also, from the Olympics, we know he won that Fair Play Award for how he handled the disappointment of not winning, and went over and congratulated Mikhail Shidorov. We still saw that take place at Worlds. I mean, there were scenes where he went up and hugged Yuma and Shun and congratulated them too. And so I like that wasn't a one-time thing that he did at the Olympics, that it is seeming, and it's not just in the men's event. It was discussed in the short program of the women's event that we're not seeing this rivalries anymore. We're seeing these skaters really embrace one another as friends. Yes, they're competitors on the ice, but there's just this different vibe that kind of came from the Olympics, and maybe even before the Olympics. I think we've saw it play out, but it's really carrying on, which I really am really liking. And I'm hoping it's going to continue.
Yeah.
I like that genuine feel of friendship and support. And to me, at the Olympics and also at Worlds, it's really getting showcased. And I'm hoping it's a shift away. I mean, I think a friendly rivalry is great. But I don't think we need to have cutthroat rivalries to fuel this sport. I think people can get just as invested in those relationships that are more positive. I don't think you have to have something where the competitors are tearing each other down. I think the shows of support show how skating is very special in the relationships that the athletes have with each other.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing.
Yeah, I agree. I wrote a little bit about this in the posts during the Olympics about just like, why is everyone so nice to each other nowadays? Because like, I think for people who sort of like plug in on the sport, like they're like, oh, they all hate each other. And, like, and I think there are, true reasons to think so. And I just feel like the conditions are different, right? Like, because now there are so many ways to win. And I like, there's one way to win first place, right? But like, you could be happy, like going viral with like Kageyama came in second, and that program is a program for the ages, and so like, I feel like the ways that people can find success through figure skating is so much broader now, and that like allows people to genuinely be happy for them. But like the other thing that I wanted that's interesting about Malanin is that the two things that like I heard most is one, he had to be overplayed, right? Because like, how could he perform like that at the Olympics? And like, I think it's true that, a country gets excited in the hype up to the Olympics. But like, it's also true that how he was winning was uncanny. Like, no one had ever seen anything like that before in skating. And so like, it was like kind of frustrating to me. It's like, no, like that's not what was happening. Like it wasn't hype. Like the guy is winning performances 30, 40, 80 points, like it's
Right.
nuts. And so the second thing, and I think it's the most salient thing, is that like whenever you ask another skater about Ilya Malinin, there is such a genuine fondness for him and how he treats other people and what he brings to the ice. I think it's most evident in his relationship with Jacob Sanchez. But, there is a sense of, people are like, he seems so cocky. And, I feel like, yeah, if you're landing jumps that people feel are impossible and you do it with that amount of confidence, that comes with a cockiness. But it's also what he does with his power behind the scenes. And I've been really not stunned, but I've been really intrigued at just the level of camaraderie that other skaters have with him. Even, especially with Yuma, which I didn't fully understand because, as far as I know, Yuma Kageyama's English isn't very good. But it turns out Ilya's Japanese is not so bad, which I learned today. And so, like, I just think it's all really fascinating. But it's not just what he wants to do with the sport for himself. I think there's sort of like this general idea that he wants to take other people with him. And I think that's to the good.
So, is there anything else you want to share about the World Championships before we sign off here? I mean, I think we've been talking about it for quite some time now.
My takeaway is just like tremendous competition all around. And, like, I feel like the Worlds after the Olympics is usually a bit of a come down, but like, it didn't feel like the last of a quad, although everyone was really tired. In all four disciplines, like, I think left feeling more excited about what the next 4 years are going to bring. And that doesn't happen all the time, but I'm really like thrilled that this is like a genuinely forward-looking world championship. And I hope the ice dance drama gets resolved really fast. Because, it.
Robert,
Yeah.
there's always going to be drama in ice dance. I say this as someone who's been in this for 26 years.
Yeah.
There's always going to be some level of it.
We could have a new drama, but I think this one,
Yeah.
it would be nice for it to quiet down, because it was such a thrilling competition. And we can move to like the new drama next year. But like, I hope it fizzles so we can move forward, because I think that will let every team that's going to stay will be like an incredibly hungry team. And I think that's like really fascinating.
Agreed. So Gina, we'll end the men by talking about the number of spots for next year.
For the men, the spots are 3 spots for France, Japan, and the US, and then 2 spots Canada, Estonia, Italy, and Switzerland.
And we will have links to other competitions such as the Unicorn Dance Trophy for solo dance, Milano Easter Trophy Synchro event, Next Gen Ice Stars, and the 2026 Morris Open Solo Dance Series event in our show notes.
Yes, and of course we will have the events that are coming up next week in there as well as some articles. Of course, there were plenty of articles that were coming out from the World Championships as well, so we'll throw some of those in as well.
You know that we like to end every episode by shining a lens on what's going on at our respective websites. As you know, we have a new store for This Week in Skating. You can support our podcast while rocking some cool swag. We also have some items in the shop for icedance.com and FSO. You can also join our Patreon for access to ad-free episodes. At IDC, I've got photos from Worlds, a recap from Worlds, Emma's photos from Ice Dance International Chicago show, and I have some new interviews with some junior competitors that are coming up in the coming weeks.
Well, over at FSO, I have a recap from Worlds, photos from Worlds, and then I'm starting to turn the corner. I'm going to be looking ahead to Synchro Worlds, and then I also have a preview of the US and Canadian Stars on Ice tour. So that'll be coming up as this week.
Thank you so much, Robert, for joining us on this episode of This Week in Skating. We really appreciate it.
Robert, where can people find you on social media and online to read what you're doing in the skating world?
Yeah, so you can read my articles at the Washington Post. I will let you guys know that like I do not cover skating full time, so you'll get some skating stories, and then you'll quickly get stories about American life, which are also interesting. So you can do that. And on social, I'm News by Samuels on Twitter or X, and I'm News by Samuels. That's NEWS by Samuels, my last name, on Instagram. And I'm trying out this TikTok thing. I'm old, so like I'm still getting used to it, but I've been posting some reels about my time in Prague. And that's videos by Samuels on TikTok.
Awesome. And as usual, you'll find us here next week.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of This Week in Skating. Remember, you can keep up with us throughout the week by visiting our website at www.thisweekinskating.com. Connect with us on social media for additional updates. You can find us on Twitter at This Week in Skating without the E's, or Facebook, Instagram, and Threads at This Week in Skating. You got a burning question or feedback for Gina, Daphne, or Matteo? Reach out to us via social media or drop us an email at thisweekinskating@gmail.com. And if you're really enjoying the show and want to support us further, consider joining our Patreon community at patreon.com/thisweekinskating. Until next time, have a nice week.